Are you planning to move to a new location anytime soon? Then you need to know about the app that helps you stay aware and stay safe. It's called Crime in Place, and it will provide you with FBI crime rates for any location. It can even tell you about specific property or personal crimes. Crime in Place is easy to use and it's free to download. Before you go anywhere, go to crimeinplace.com. Stay aware, stay safe with Crime in Place on your iPhone. Howard, you look great in your State Patriot hat and
thanks.
T-shirt tonight. I've got my hat located behind me.
America.
So for the rest of you guys out there listening and watching, you too can make a statement and wear the flag proud. State Patriot is a clothing and apparel company on a mission to honor our nation and its heroes. While their thin blue line dry fit shirts with UPF 50, as I said, Howard's wearing one tonight, have won my heart. State Patriot also offers a variety of patriotic gear designed to support all first responders and our military. Go check them out on Facebook and Instagram at State Patriot or visit www.statepatriot.com and use promo code STICKS for 20% off your purchase. And Styx is not like the rock band. It's S-T-I-C-K-S.
It's not S-T-Y-X.
Yeah, not S-T-Y-X.
Hey, a lot of people say that in S-T-I-X. We get lots of spellings for sticks on our social media.
We do.
Hey, I will tell you, State Patriot, these are ginger approved for the out of doors. You know, our skin is very fair.
Your skin is very fair. You say our as if Jason and I and our lovely guests tonight are included.
No, I'm talking about my fellow ginger brethren and sister and
you and Raggedy Ann and Andy and
yeah, all those. The people don't
Chucky.
know those are old people. Hey, Sean.
Sir.
Yeah. What's one of the big police departments in the United of the States?
Coweta, Oklahoma.
No, that's not one, sir. They have a great rodeo team, though.
They do. They do. Let's see. You know, the big ones that come to mind are typically LAPD.
Yeah.
And NYPD. One goes to the other.
Yeah, so we got ourselves a detective from the NYPD.
Nice.
Who's going to share a bunch of stories with us about. In fact, he's so good at sharing stories. He's wrote some books about these stories, behind the scenes, funny things, stupid things people have done, stupid things police officers have done and got himself bound up in. How to steal a car and get away with it. How to steal a car and not get away with it. He's written a lot of interesting stuff. But our guest today is Vic Ferrari. Welcome, Vic.
Speaking
Hi, gentlemen.
of cars, last name is Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like this is for real.
Yeah, and it is a Ferrari.
I like it.
Well, hi, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Well, what do we like to do here?
Vic, I'm sure you know, got to have a cocktail while we discuss your line of work and your books and auto thefts and things of that nature. So we here tonight have cold beer.
Yeah, we do. Sure do. We got Peronis. They're Italian. You're half Italian.
I am.
I'm half redneck. And we're going to drink some of these. What's in your glass over there, sir?
I'm drinking a White Russian. I came across a bottle I got as a gift of Kahlua.
Sweet. We could have drank White Russians. I would have worn a robe, a State Patriot robe, but I would have.
I'm not a robe kind of guy.
Well, I do have a nice robe. And if you own a robe, you know you don't wear anything under the robe.
Well, that's just it. It's a whole lifestyle. Then there's the aftershave and all that other crap that goes along with it.
Other than Hugh Hefner, no man should wear a robe.
There you go.
Like at all. Like for real.
No, they're pretty comfortable.
That's weird.
One of our great friends, Dirk, loves to wear his robe and come over to my house.
He wears them at 7:00 at night, walking around with everybody present.
This is true. Big shout out to him. The only person that's a little weirder than that's Chad Ayers and the Red Boots, but other than that, we're pretty good. So, Vic, we want to hear, how'd you get into being a police officer? I'm sure that your family was a police. That's the only way you can get in. It's the legacy thing there in New York, isn't it?
No, but believe it or not, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I lobbied. I grew up in the early 70s, mid 80s, and I begged my parents as a little boy to take me to see the French Connection, 7-Ups, Dirty Harry, and I was in the Rockford Files and all that other stuff, and I knew I wanted to be an NYPD detective as a little boy, and my parents were like, yeah, that's great. But after a while, they started seeing like that was the only thing I wanted to do, and I remember my dad right after high school saying, well, that's great. You want to be an NYPD cop. He says, but you got 3 years to go before they're going to hire you. And he tried to get me into everything. He dragged me to take the electrician's test. He tried to get me into the trades. And he said, well, he goes, you want to be a cop, that's great, but that's not here yet. You're going to have a job. So it was almost like catch me if you can. I'd leave the house with one job and come back with another. My parents wanted to throw me out the window because they're like, all right, you got to do something real before you become a cop. I took the police exam at like 19. I got hired at 21, and I went through the New York City Police Academy, and it was a great 20-year ride. I got no regrets. It was the most fun I ever had in my life. It enabled me a second career writing. I met a lot of great people, interesting criminals. I met a ton of famous people. I like to tell people being a cop in New York is like having a front row seat at the circus. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You go in thinking the day is going to go one way, and the next day it's something else. You think the shit's going to hit the fan and something else happened. I mean, well, every cop knows what I'm talking about, but New York, it's just so populated with 9 million people. And the New York City Police Department has at any given time between 35,000 and 40,000 members. So it's larger than most countries' armies. So there's just so many personalities and things going on. And like Sean and I were talking off the air about, you've been in New York a lot of times by AMC's headquarters. So you've dealt with a lot of NYPD guys. It's like they're unflappable. There's just so much going on.
What year did you get on there? When did you retire?
I got hired in July of 87 and I retired in July of 2007.
So you you were there when the violence was, at that kind of like the all-time high. And I mean, you had prostitutes just out walking around, bloody outfits. And,
Old Times Square, man.
Before everything got shut down and changed. Yeah. So you got to see that change, be a part of it.
Yeah, well, when I got hired, Koch was mayor, and he was a good guy. He just didn't really, he wanted to please everybody, and he wound up pleasing nobody. And he was good to the cops, but he wasn't tough on crime. And then he stepped down, and then we got a guy by the name of the late, great David Dinkins, and he just didn't acknowledge it. And New York was out of control. I mean, like you were talking about 42nd Street. When I was a kid, we used to go down there to buy fireworks, and guys would get fake IDs. It was like going to like Indiana Jones. You see him in Morocco, like where he can get his hands on anything. It was like, and then we would get robbed going down there. So like we would go with packs of like 20 guys so we wouldn't get robbed. But then the cops would see 20 white kids getting off the train, and then they would kick us in the ass and send us back up to the Bronx. So when I got hired, crack had just started. And, it was crazy. You had people selling their bodies for crack. And my first precinct as a rookie cop was the 4-2 precinct where they filmed the movie Fort Apache, the Bronx, where Paul Newman and Ed Asner were running around. Yeah. But by the time I got there in 87, 88, it was all bombed out in abandoned buildings. So they used to call Fort Apache Little House on the Prairie. So
how fitting.
Yeah. So you get dropped off. I remember as a rookie cop, they would drop you off in front of a row of abandoned buildings like on Fulton Avenue and say, okay, kid, take care. Give me a call if you need me. And you're just standing there like, what the fuck? And like there's crackheads walking by with shit they stole or pulled out of a building. And there'd be in vacant lots. You'd see junkies burning copper pipe to the coaxial cable to get the copper, and it was just a different time period. And the NYPD back then did not want patrol cops making drug arrests. So if you walked into the station house with a couple of vials of crack in here, give that guy a summons and get the fuck out of here. Or if you do that again, you're never going to get inside of a radio car. But that all changed because once Giuliani came in, Giuliani was a former prosecutor. He understood the beast. And I mean, I'm a big Rudy fan, and Rudy really took the handcuffs off the cops. A lot of NYPD guys from my time period don't like Rudy because he feel that he screwed us with the contracts. But here's the thing with Rudy. If you were willing to do your job, he'd back you and you could make the overtime. It's a lot of guys that didn't work that cry, well, he didn't give us a contract. Well, you weren't really working. But Rudy really took the handcuffs off the cop. He beefed up the narcotics division where there was more buy and bust operations. And we were going after quality of life crimes. So a lot of the vagrants and stuff that you saw pissing in the street or loitering, we'd run these guys through the system for minor crimes. But guess what? This guy's wanted for homicide. So now he's off the street. This guy's wanted for a string of robberies. He's off the street. So Giuliani really had it down to a science. And I was lucky enough to be a part of that. Then Bloomberg came in. Bloomberg was smart enough to keep the same model in place. And, New York continued to thrive. Now, I stepped down in 87. Bloomberg left, I guess, a couple of years after that. Now, New York has kind of slid back to the way it was pre-Giuliani.
Well, you said you came to the Bronx in the 80s. I don't think a lot of people realize the Bronx in the 80s was like a war zone. It looked like a foreign country. I mean, there were shelled out buildings. I mean, if you see pictures of the Bronx during that time, it was utter destruction. Most of the Bronx was on fire on any given day, wasn't it?
Well, I grew up in the Bronx. I mean, I grew up in the East Bronx, but yeah, the South Bronx, yeah, it was all abandoned, burned out buildings, wild packs of greasy dogs running around. And, I mean, that movie Fort Apache, the Bronx, really shows it for what the South Bronx was. I mean, they caught a lot of crap for it for making that movie, and I don't think that movie would ever get made today. But if you want to see what the Bronx looked like in the late 70s, early 80s, we have a funny story about that. A kid I sat next to in high school cut out of school, and he was an extra in the movie. And then he became an NYPD cop.
Huh. So you ended up being a beat detective up there in the Bronx, and you kind of proceeded in your career and got promoted up. Where'd you go after being a beat cop?
Well, I never wanted to become a sergeant. I never really wanted to tell anybody what to do. I have a hard enough time managing myself. I didn't want to manage other personalities. I wanted to be a detective. So I made a lot of arrests. I went into plainclothes within 5 years. I was in what's called an anti-crime unit, where you're in plain clothes riding around the precinct. You're looking for robberies in progress, burglaries, stolen cars, pickpockets, that sort of thing. From there, I went to the Manhattan North Narcotics Division doing buy and bust operations. I wasn't a primary undercover. I did buy drugs a handful of times, but I wasn't a primary undercover. I was doing buy and bust for a while. And then eventually I got into the NYPD's auto crime division, which is chop shops, exporting stolen vehicles out of the country, changing vehicle identification numbers for resale. But you got to remember, like in the mid 80s, early 90s, there was 150,000 cars being stolen a year in New York City. Jesus. So it was like shooting fish in the barrel. I mean, we were into chases almost every night.
Now, let me ask you, man, and were those the old GM products?
Yeah.
Pop the steering column with a flat screwdriver and start it right up. I mean,
the long neck GM.
That's it, man. All those trucks, the Cutlasses, the Caprice, the Buick Skylarks, you name it, man. The first part of my career is the same thing. You saw one of those rolling 3 or 4 deep. You just turned around on it in your squad car just to see what they did. And then, boom, the car chase was on because they were stolen.
Right. Or you'd pull up to them and you'd see like a bandana wrapped around the steering column, or there'd be one key. Like who has one key in the ignition?
So in my rookie year, my training officer was off one night. We were working graveyards overnights, and I had a ride with a supervisor. His name was Tom Ford. This guy was hands down one of the best street cops I've ever worked around. And everybody was stealing those cars, and he loved to find them. And so we would drive up next to cars as they were driving on 2-lane roads, going the same direction. And I shit you not, he would take his flashlight and lean out of his driver's window to look in the passenger window of a car right next to us to see if they had a bandana or a pop column around that steering wheel. I mean,
that's sharp.
We got in a pursuit with an El Camino off of him doing that one. Swear to God, swear. It was mind-boggling.
Hey, El Caminos are worth stealing now. You seen those that go for like 25,000, even the hoopty ones.
You know what the street term is for an El Camino?
What's that?
An Elco. That's an education piece for everybody listening.
Thank you, Elco.
In the gangster world, it's called an Elco.
What's the Cutlass in?
Scrap metal now. So, a cutty.
Cutty.
That's what they're cutting.
Hey, I do know what a donk is. Does everybody know what a donk is?
Go ahead.
So a donk is when you take usually Cutlass is some sort of sedan, right?
Yeah, it's old school sedans.
And you raise it and you put like semi-sized tires on it. But the tires, instead of being the normal thickness, they're about 1 inch thick. So they have this plush ride because they have so much air underneath them. Those are called donks, right?
That's a donk, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vic, I mean, like I said, that time period, man, those GM cars were just stolen left and right. And a lot of guys stole them for a little bit different probably there in New York with the ports and things like that you guys have, talking about shipping them out of country or whatever. But, here it was one of those deals. They were stolen. They were joyriding. They were using for drive-by shootings and robberies or burglaries and that type of stuff. But it was a little bit different there, some of the stuff you guys got into.
Well, yeah. I mean, I used to say nobody in New York holds on to a stolen car more than a couple of days unless you're a kid or a junkie. A kid's going to drive around until the wheels fall off, and a junkie kind of falls in love with it and will drive around with it. It's taking him to his spot to buy dope. He's visiting his girlfriend. That's usually they get caught because they have "you are illegally parked" sticker on their window, where they're driving around with the little balloon tire because they got a flat. And that tire is only good for like fucking 8 miles, and they're driving around for it for 50 until that blows off. Then we had, believe it or not, retagging, changing the VIN numbers for resale, because a lot of our tag jobs, the Chevy Impalas, the Cadillacs, the Four-Doors, the Oldsmobiles, they were being converted into dollar cabs. So we were getting is a lot of like the illegal aliens. What they would do is they'd buy these stolen four-door cars, they change the VIN number, and then they would hang out by the train stations. And when commuters would come up, they would charge people $1 or $2 to take them home. So they were getting converted into like dollar vans and dollar cabs. Gypsy cabs is what we call them in New York.
They later became the company called Uber.
Uber.
Yeah.
Or Lyft, if you're so inclined. So did you have any big rings that were stealing like fancy cars and trying to ship them out of country?
Oh yeah. I mean, we did a case. It was actually a Chinese military intelligence officer that settled in Brooklyn, and what he was doing was he fell in with this Jamaican from the Bronx who had ties to a bunch of car thieves. And basically, what they were doing was they were stealing 30 cars a month. They were going out to Brooklyn. They had Chinese nationals in a warehouse. They were putting between 3 and 4 Audi A6s in the container. What they would do is they would drive two stolen Audis in the container. They would let the air out of the tires so the car would sit lower in the container. Then they would build a wooden frame above it and put 2 cars or a car, depending on the size of the car, over it. And they were shipping about 30 stolen cars out of the country a month.
Wow.
They liked Audis, huh?
Well, the orders were, now we were up on their phones. So the orders were for silver and black Audis. That's all they wanted. A couple of times someone brought in a green car. They didn't want it. And we were like, what are they, Oakland Raider fans? But what turned out is they were going to government officials. So when we took down the case, we went to the State Department. They're like, no, we don't want to hear it. But so you had the Asians that were involved with selling and moving the cars out of the country. Our thieves were black and Spanish, and while we were up on their phones, we solved about 13 homicides because these guys were also in the murder for hire business.
I mean, crime, you got to diversify. You got to do different things if you want to survive, huh?
Do you know who prosecuted that case?
Who?
Judge Janine, that you see on Fox News. She was the prosecutor for the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. She was freaking great because the case originally started in Westchester County, and they came to us because we had the resources, and we were getting banged too with the stolen Audis. And we combined our resources, but she was friggin' great. I mean, she would come into those conference rooms. I mean, she was like, she's a good prosecutor.
That's all. How much were those cars going for? The stolen Audis, back then?
We were told from what we gathered, because nobody really was talking, but we figured out that they were probably going for close to $80,000 or $100,000 over in China. I mean, nobody was talking. It's not like the thieves were talking, but they didn't know how much the cars were going for over in China.
Yeah, I've been over to China a couple of times. Over there, they don't have you don't finance a car. Did you know that?
I did not.
You pay in cash for your car, and when not check, you pay in cash. And the biggest bill they have in China is, depending on the current currency exchange, is about worth $19 because they don't want it counterfeited. So they would go in, and you know what, a luxury car which they love over there, besides the Audis, is the Buick. That's the only reason Buick has stayed in business, because of the Chinese. It's a status symbol.
Yeah, nobody wants that thing.
Audi, yeah. Buick, right? No shit. They buy Buick. But a Buick over there is like $90,000 new, right? Just a basic Buick. Yeah. So you go in, you bring 2 suitcases full of basically $19
bills, yeah.
And you buy your Buick. That's how they do it in China. Huh. Interesting fact. There's my education.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So, yeah, prices haven't really gone up on cars in China since then.
Yeah, they were making a lot of money, and supposedly the guy that was running it, he told one of the thieves before he flipped, when we locked him up, he goes, "Listen, when this blows over," he goes, "I got a brother in California doing the same thing. We'll move you out there."
So, hey, okay, so beyond this, I mean, obviously you're a character. You've got the accent. I mean, you're pretty stereotypical New Yorker, as we see in the South. I mean, we know how you guys look at us, that we talk slow, and we are slow, and we're riding cows all the time, and we have relationships with family members, but we're not like that. So we're not going to stereotype.
That's Arkansas.
Yeah, we're close enough, dude. I mean, we're like 70 miles away, so it's fine. But let's hear some of the funniest stories that you've heard in your time as a police officer.
I mean, what do you want to hear? Do you want to hear
I
about?
want to
All
hear
right,
about
I'll
people
tell you a
fucking
funny
out
story.
doing stupid shit. That's what I want to hear about.
Okay, I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm working in, and there was like the AAA affiliate to the auto crime division. I was in the auto loss in the unit. And you know how law enforcement is. Guys retire and they get these jobs with corporate companies. So we knew this guy who was now the LoJack liaison. So he calls us up and he says, listen, he goes, I'm taking these cops from the Moscow police department around. They want to see an NYPD precinct.
Do you mean?
And, you know, they want to talk. So like, yeah, sure. That'd be great. Right. So the next day he shows up with like 8 or 10 of the roughest looking fucking guys you'd ever seen in your life. I mean, these guys look like they were fucking bouncers in a club in Manhattan. I mean, fucking middle-aged guys, like they all smokers, rough looking motherfuckers, man, broken noses. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, what'd you bring, the Russian mob? He goes, no, they're with the Moscow police. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, right? So the only one that spoke English was their translator, who was probably a fucking KGB agent. So anyway, they're not saying much, and you know, we're showing them around and the interpreter's going around. So all these guys wanted to do was get in our police cars and play with the fucking sirens and lights and stuff, because from we were told they don't, like, they drive around in unmarked car, like they drive around in Buicks, right? So
that they got from China.
yeah, right. So we have like, so after like we show them around, it's time for like the question and answer period of the show, right? And the interpreter starts asking us these like fucking wild questions, like, what type of gun do you find most effective for stopping a car? And I'm like, well, whoa, we don't shoot at cars unless they're shooting at us. And like, they're all looking at each other, right? And then another one says, like, how do you find it, how you say, get confession? And he's like pounding his hand. I'm like, well, no, we had to explain to him, like, we got civil rights here and you can't, you know, and like they watch American movies over there and they're looking at us like we're a bunch of fucking pussies, right? So we're laughing at them and they're laughing at us, right? So, you know, typical NYPD fashion, right? The translator goes out to his car and he comes back with these beautiful medallions. It's supposedly commemorating, I don't know, the 60th anniversary of the Moscow Police Department. Now, for all I know, it could have said, kiss my ass, capitalist pig, but they were nice. They gave us these nice medallions and we had fucking nothing for these guys. Like, we felt so bad, right? So I said, all right, hold on a second. So a bunch of us went up to our locker and we just started grabbing hats and old fucking nightsticks and shit, you know, like stuff you throw away in a station house, right? We kind of like in a fucking garbage bag. We bring it downstairs, right? We think they're going to be pissed. These motherfuckers tore the bag open and these grown men are fucking rolling around on the floor, beating the fuck out of each other. I want hot. You know what I mean? Like, so we had to make a fucking second trip upstairs to get more crap for them, you know, like old hats and shit and just anything with the NYPD fucking logo on it. Then another time, right? So this is years later. I'm a detective in the auto crime division. This is actually my book, Grand Theft Auto. I'm in the auto crime division and I hear my sergeant arguing with 2 detectives in another team. And he's telling them, listen, I'm not asking, I'm telling you, you got to pick this fucking guy up and give him a tour. And my buddy goes, give him a tour of what? A crack house? Fucking Yankee Stadium? And he's pissed. And I go, what's wrong? He goes, I don't know. I got to go to the fucking hotel and pick up some guy from the Tokyo Police Department and give him a fucking tour. And the sergeant gives him $20. He goes, well, go out and have a nice lunch. He goes, fucking $20. Where the fuck am I going to take this guy for $20? All right, whatever. And he leaves. Right? So it was one of those days, like my partner banged in or something, and I'm sitting at my desk doing paperwork, right? That detective comes back about an hour later, and I see him fishing around for another set of keys for another car. And I go, what happened? He goes, you want to see something funny? I said, yeah. He goes, come with me. I go down to the parking lot, and laid out in the back seat of a filthy Buick Century is a 5-foot Asian guy with a fucking expensive camera and a half a bottle of Gatorade, fucking passed out drunk, sleeping in the back seat of their car. And I go, what the fuck happened? He goes, he was out with the Vice guys last night and had too much stuff. He goes, and my buddy was pissed because he didn't want him in the first place, right? But now they go to Manhattan, they pick him up and he's fucking drunk. And he just wants to sleep. So he goes, come on, let's go get lunch. And I go, well, you can't fucking leave him unattended in the backseat of the car. He goes, he's Asian. He's not retarded. He goes, he'll be fucking fine. I go, but we're in the South Bronx. If he fucking wakes up and starts wandering around, he goes, stop fucking around. Come on, let's go. Let's get lunch. I said, all right. So we leave the little Japanese guy passed out in the backseat of the car and we go get lunch, right? We come back an hour later. The fucking guy is gone. I said, oh, fuck. Now we're in the South Bronx, right? I go, fuck. So I run to our office to see if he went into our office, which we'd be in trouble if he fucking showed up and the sergeant goes, you left this fucking guy unattended, but he'd be alive. If he made a right, that's the housing project. He's going to get fucking robbed, right? So he's not in the office. I jump in one radio car. My old buddy and his partner drive around, and we're canvassing. We can't put it over the radio. We're canvassing, looking for this guy, right? Standing in the middle of the street about 4 blocks. I mean, it's the burned out South Bronx. Standing in the middle of the street is a little Japanese guy taking a picture of a mural of a fucking deceased drug dealer and his beloved dog tray bag that had been painted onto the side of the wall. He's like fucking sightseeing, right? So I pull up and I whoop, whoop, turns around and he starts like giving me the fucking peace sign. I go, this has got to be him, right? So I get out of the car. This fucking guy, like a child that was lost at Disney World, he comes running over to me and grabs me around the waist, right? So I get on the radio and I kind of say over the radio, like cryptically, like, hey, Danny, I found what we're looking for. Meet me over at the
package has been recovered. The
right. So I bring
recovered.
him back and this guy pulls up and he starts motherfucking him. You stupid bastard. You could have gotten killed. What were you thinking? I'm like, Danny, he doesn't understand English, but I'm sure he gets what you're saying. So fucking... he returns him back, right? I go back up to the office. I'm doing paperwork. This guy comes back with his partner, and now his sergeant lands on him like a fly on shit. It's like a spouse wanting to know how your day was. Well, how did it go? He goes, fine. He goes, how was lunch? He goes, great. It was the funniest thing in the world. He goes, did he have a good time? He goes, I had a fucking great time. Took lots of pictures. So that's a story from my book, Grand Theft Auto. And in the book, we refer to him as Tokyo Joe.
Tokyo Joe. Well, going back to the Russians, obviously anybody who's ever been out to New York, you walk into any store, Times Square, or even, anywhere, everybody's selling NYPD stuff, hats, T-shirts, it's like that and, the Statue of Liberty. I Love New York are probably the two, most sold items out there. So that might have been the start of this whole thing was these Russian cops wanting all the goods. And you could have been a billionaire by now had you started selling those bad boys.
That's funny. You know what? Had I spoke Russian, we could have had a pipeline going back. And we could have like a nice little black market going,
There you go.
Hey, well, I never even thought that you would have all these other cities coming to visit you. You talked about going to visiting LAPD and learning some gang stuff from them. But, I mean, heck, you got them from all over the world, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. Like I said, and I'm sure Sean knows this. I mean, the average cop, it takes a while to warm up to somebody. No cop likes getting second guessed. I mean, not that you're doing anything wrong, but the street's got its own set of rules and things can jump off at a moment's notice, and no cop wants to be second guessed. You know what I mean? And it's the same way working with a guy. Like I always kid around, like the NYPD is so big. When you're a rookie cop and you go to a precinct, the old timers don't want to talk to you. They look at you like you're from outer space, and you're kind of walking around, and it's almost like I equate it to like being in prison. You got to be careful who you buddy up with, because there's some guy there with 4 or 5 years. He's really nice to you. And then you realize down the road, this guy hasn't had a partner because he's an asshole.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or this guy's too handsy. You know what I mean? Or this guy might be a thief, or this guy's a total scumbag and doesn't know how to talk to people. And you're going to rack up civilian complaints, which is going to impede your career. So no cop really likes it's if you find a good partner, you tend to stick with the guy. It's like a marriage.
Yeah. When you first get on, I mean, we had a guest that was talking about, out in LA, they refer to him as boots when you're a new cop, or, rookie, rook, whatever. Mm-hmm. And when I came on, we had a guy that had come on like literally in like the late 1960s. He was at the end of his career, been through it all. And when you'd walk up to the desk, he was the supervisor behind the desk. So when you wanted to turn in property, you had to get a property receipt. We used to have to write down whatever you were turning in for evidence. And if you were a new cop, you literally would just stand there for 30 minutes. He wouldn't even acknowledge you, wouldn't look up at you. And every other old school cop that would come up here, he'd be like, hey, Jim, what's going on, man? And take care of him. And it was just, if you asked, he would look at you and just put his head back down. It was just how it was, man. That's just how you were going to get treated. Yeah, it was part of it.
Well, think of it this way, all right? So the New York City Police Department, in its 5 boroughs, right, has 77 precincts. Okay, so the 77 precincts, and each precinct has a minimum of 100, and some big precincts have 300, 400 guys. Okay, so if you're in a unit like mine, the auto crime division, you're making arrests I could make an arrest in the 4-6 precinct up in the Bronx today, and tomorrow make an arrest in the 7th precinct lower Manhattan. Okay. And just because we're one big happy family doesn't mean you're treated like home. And like what Sean was saying is, you got to learn how to deal with the desk officer. Like you walk into an NYPD precinct, the first thing you do is, and I explain this in my books, you walk up to the desk with the cuffed prisoner. Hi, boss. I got one for GLA, grand loss in the auto. Okay, is the first question the desk officer, is he sick or injured? That's the first thing they want to know. If this guy's sick or injured, get him the fuck out of here, bring him to the hospital, and don't come back until you got a medical treatment for him. Nobody wants somebody dying in the station house. It's bad for business. Then what they do is, all right, empty out everything this motherfucker's got in his pockets, put it on the desk, right? If rookie cops make this mistake, they start tossing the guy at the desk. Officer, did I fucking tell you to touch that prisoner? Here's another thing in an NYPD precinct. You're doing paperwork and stuff. A lot of those essential forms you need to do the paperwork are behind the desk. You got to feel out that desk, officer. I've seen cops get embarrassed, old timers. They walk behind that desk. Detective or sergeant, did I fucking tell you to come behind my desk? Get the fuck out of here and wait. So like, I know what you mean. A lot of those old timers are salty. I mean, some can be assholes, and some have been burned before where they've lost 30 vacation days, have been put on a year probation, and they're not going to touch that fucking third rail again.
Yep. So when you talk about precincts, how's that work? I mean, you say there's 77. Does it start at the tip of Manhattan and go up, and that's the way they're dispersed, or they?
Well, no, it doesn't go. There's no rhyme or reason to it, really. So there's 5 boroughs, right? So the Bronx, there's 12 precincts, and it's the 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, and it goes up to the 52. And then Manhattan, I think Manhattan and Brooklyn have the most precincts, and like a borough like Manhattan is split. So you have Manhattan North, which is like from 57th Street all the way up to the Bronx border, and Manhattan South, which is 57th Street South all the way down to Battery Park. And then you got like places like Staten Island that's got 3 precincts. That's like East Cupcake, as we like to call it, but the mafia lives out there, so I guess it's not really East Cupcake. And then you got Brooklyn, which is really fucked up. It's funny, I worked in the Bronx and Harlem most of my NYPD career, and I thought, I worked in some of the toughest places in the world. Once I went into the auto crime division, man, and I went into Brooklyn, I'm like, holy shit, Brooklyn's fucking bad. Brooklyn is just hardcore. The perps are worse. There's more housing projects. It's funny. Like I get my books. You go into a housing project in the NYPD, right? You've got about 5 minutes to make a decision. Is this guy going to jail? Am I calling an ambulance? Do I get the fuck out of here? Because what happens is people start going into those buildings, and within 5 minutes, airmail starts coming out the fucking windows and off the roof of you. Batteries, potted plants, fucking phone books. You name what could be thrown out of a 30-story window, and you hear it. Shit started. So you got 5 minutes to make a decision. Am I going to fucking bring this guy, take this guy to the hospital, put cuffs on him? There's no fucking around. And Brooklyn was the worst with that shit.
And now it's full of hipsters, huh?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, Harlem's got hipsters and parts of Brooklyn. Yeah, it's amazing with that shit, because you'd see these kids walking around like, "What, are you fucking lost?" Oh man, I live here. Like, okay.
Yeah, he's going to the coffee shop with his crochet,
his skinny jeans and his fucking Vespa.
Yeah, his Vespa. Fucking Howard has a Vespa. True story.
Vespa. It's a Ferrari.
Don't laugh. There's a story in my book. I broke up the largest cockfighting ring in New York City looking for stolen Vespas. My fucking sergeant gives me this whole speech. Don't get involved in anything but auto crime. That's a story from Grand Theft Auto.
So you started fighting cocks.
I walked into a fucking basement apartment. Well, it wasn't an apartment. It was a common area. We had these stolen Vespas, and a kid got locked up in the Bronx with one. So I went to the neighborhood and I started hitting all these buildings and talking to the superintendents to let me in their common area where people keep their bicycles and snow blowers and shit, because that's where they stash stolen shit. And if the super gives me access to look, I can look, right? So after about the 6th or 7th building, we stumble upon the super. He looked like Tattoo from Fantasy Island, and he was stoned out of his mind.
The plane.
He kept fucking. Awesome. Well, no, he was like fucking dropping his keys. I says, "Can I look at the comment?" And he like, see, and he keeps dropping his fucking keys, and I'm like, "There's something in there. This motherfucker doesn't want me to see." But I'm taking yes for an answer because he's saying see. So he opens up this fucking room. And running around on the floor, you must have had about 50 chickens and roosters running around. I guess those were like the training cocks. But then stacked in pods, like across the wall was like 50 or another 100, like hardcore roosters, and they're all clucking and shit. And I'm like, I know what this is. But I don't like, I'm an auto crime detective. I don't work for the fucking ASPCA, but I know it's a crime. But I had just read the riot act because I just walked into a gambling location. I locked everybody up, and my sergeant said, my lieutenant told me, no, just stick to auto crime. I said, all right. So I leave. So the super goes, it's okay. I go, it's okay. He goes, really? I said, yeah, I don't give a fuck, right? And I leave. No Vespas, no Vespas. I leave. I call my sergeant up and I go, listen, there's a fucking cut. He goes, call the ASPCA. I go, no, see, we can make a lot of fucking overtime with this. We'll call them. And he's like, call the fucking ASPCA. So do you remember that show that used to be on TV, Animal Precinct on Animal Planet?
Yeah,
there was a bunch of ASPCA cops running around saving fucking cats and shit. Well, anyway, I call that number and I recognize the guy's fucking voice immediately. And I think his name was Romano. And I go, Officer Romano. He goes, that's me. I go, Animal Precinct for Animal Planet. He goes, stop busting my balls. What do you want? So I told him, I go, listen, I said, I stumbled upon this fucking thing. It's full of roosters and cocks and all this shit. He goes, okay, no. He goes, I'll tell you what. He goes, we're going to investigate it. He goes, if we get a warrant, I'll call you up if you want to piggyback on it. I said, fucking great. I totally forget about it. About 2 weeks later, true to his word, I'm putting a fence in with my father. And my father fucking stuck the auger in a tree root and started dancing around. He looked like he was square dancing. I had to push him off and knock him on the floor. Anyway, the phone rings and it's this guy. And he says, listen, we're going to hit the place tomorrow and round up all these birds and shit. And I said, nah, you know what? My lieutenant told me to stay out of it. Next day, it's on the front page of the Daily News, the New York Post, largest cockfighting ring broken by the ASPCA. Oh. They did their job, right? My sergeant's a fucking idiot. He reads it and he makes the mistake of telling my lieutenant, who was one of these guys that, like, if he could have jumped in on the Kennedy assassination, he's just one of these guys. Like, he was always trying to steal someone else's thunder. You know what I mean? Like, he was always trying to get his 2 cents into everything. And he goes, get Ferrari in here. And he's fucking reading me the riot act. I go, did you not just tell me to stick to auto crime? So, yeah, I broke up one of the largest cockfighting rings looking for a Vespa.
Well, great.
Yeah, you'll break up some cockfighting over at Howard's house looking for a Vespa. Yeah, they won't be birds.
You know,
no.
He lives in the neighborhood. He's part of the cockfighting ring for sure.
Yeah. Dirk with the robe.
Yeah, Dirk with the robe on 7 p.m. at night, walking around the courtyard.
Vic, you are a character, my man. You are freaking hilarious. And so you've mentioned your book, Grand Theft Auto. Where can people find it? You know, we've got, 10 minutes left or so, but you've hit this thing several times. People have got to go get this thing.
Yeah, I've written 4 NYPD books. They're all about the funny, interesting criminals and funny cops I work with. So the book I just quoted is called Grand Theft Auto, the NYPD's Auto Crime Division. It's everything you wanted to know about the stolen car industry and were afraid to ask. It's how a car thief's mindset, what happens to your car when it gets stolen, how to prevent your car from getting stolen, the scams of what car thieves do and things like that. All my books are available on Amazon for $12 paperback and $2.99 ebook download.
Nice.
Very nice.
So, hey, before you leave, I mean, you also talk about being involved with the mafia too. So everybody knows that New York City is the home of the mafia. So tell us your mafia stories.
My office was in the Bronx. We had some mobsters, but like the hardcore mobsters, like Gotti's guys and everything, they were in Brooklyn. Actually, Gotti's son-in-law, Carmine, had a recycling plant, like a shredder.
Yeah,
in the Bronx, and we had undercovers that basically he ran a section of Queens called Willard's Point, and you couldn't just open up a glass place, a body and fender place without kicking up money to him. So what our Queens office and Brooklyn office did was they opened up a trailer, they started a junkyard, and we thought he was going to send a couple of goons and smack our guys around, but actually he showed up. We couldn't believe it. And yeah, he came in like it was like De Niro in The Untouchables. Like, what are you guys fucking kidding me? You know who I am? You know, he wound up doing 9 years for it. But my book Grand Theft Auto starts off with we did a search warrant in a mobster's place out in Willard's Point, right next to where the Mets play, Shade Stadium. And we're going through this mobster's office, and we find a fucking hand grenade in a shoebox. So my old partner worked in the Army. He's looking at this fucking thing, and he goes, pineapple grenade, probably Vietnam era. And he's walking around with this fucking thing. Now, Frank was a fucking cook in the army. He wasn't a fucking demolitions guy, right? And I go, what are you going to do with it? He goes, I'm going to throw it in Jamaica Bay. Now, what's funny is if a grenade went off in Jamaica Bay, everybody was afraid of the mafia. No one would call 911. Like it would be like a fart in the wind. No one would say 2 words about it. But I go, you know what? If we I had to talk to him like a kid. I go, if you put the grenade back and we call the bomb squad, they're going to come with all their fucking toys. They love this shit. The guy will come in his fucking spacesuit and we'll make so much more overtime. So he goes, all right. So he puts the grenade back in the shoebox. I find my lieutenant, the same guy, the glory hound. And I go, boss, I think we found a live hand grenade. Holy shit. Fucking tape comes out. He fucking, coordinates everything. We, sets up a perimeter. Next thing I know, there's fucking helicopters, the bomb squad's there, the news is there. My partner was just walking around with this thing, right? Now we're like treating it like there's fucking the Wuhan lab, right? So we're fucking sitting there, right? Next thing you know, you got that guy in the bomb suit thing. They look like a fucking anteater. You know what I'm talking about? He's got like that thing.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, the anteater or the armadillo, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So anyway, he goes in there and he comes out with the shoebox and he's holding it and everybody's applauding it. And they put it in that round basket-like thing. It's like, it looks like a beehive. They put it in there and fucking caravan of things go riding off. And we made like 10 hours overtime, but my partner wanted to throw the fucking thing in Jamaica Bay.
Hey, you seem like you're a little bit of a hound for the overtime. It sounds like.
Oh yeah. I was.
Oh yeah, and you always got to give love to your other squad mates. Back in the day, it used to be, you search a car, you found dope, somebody else tested the dope, somebody else turned the dope in, somebody else Mirandized the suspect. I mean, it was then everybody got a subpoena for court, and I don't know, right or wrong, but there was nothing illegal done. You just kind of made sure everybody got their overtime, and our department put a stop to that at some point.
They all do.
Yeah, they did. I mean, that's how it used to be. So it was, you had the same guys in court every single morning.
That would have been me.
Taking that time and a half, man.
Well, hey, Vic, we really enjoyed having you today. I think you're our most lively guest that we probably
by far.
had. Yeah.
By far. I mean, hell, I thought about just turning our mics off and just let you talk, man.
We've got about.
You need your own show.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes left. Man, wild card us. Tell us what you want. We're not going to even ask any questions.
All right, I'll tell you a story from the NYPD's Flying Circus, Cops, Crime, and Chaos. We used to work with a guy. He was an Irish guy, but the Spanish cops would call him El Diablo because he was the devil. And most guys that work with him either got divorced or converted to Christianity to save their lives. He's just a big fucking party guy. He's a lot of fun. So one day he's drinking in a bar in Midtown, and he's talking to these two floozies. And over by Central Park, you got those horse and carriage rides. I think they call hansom cabs. Okay, so a handsome cab operator walks into the bar and he's got his fucking top hat on and the coat, and El Diablo sees him, and to impress the girls, he goes, "Hey buddy, you mind if I take Seabiscuit for a ride?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." And he goes into the bathroom. He goes, "Come on, ladies. He's a buddy of mine, right?" El Diablo walks outside with the two hookers and he puts them inside the horse and carriage, right? And he starts hitting the horse with the whip. Horse isn't doing anything, right? So some guy comes over and goes, "Sir, you got to remove the block." He goes, "Oh, yeah, I forgot. Just move it." And he's drunk. They remove the block, and the fucking horse starts going up 59 to 57, but by Central Park, the horse starts going. So the horse is going fine. The horse is going, and horse is stopping and everything. Well, then the horse realizes that the jackass riding him doesn't know what he's doing. The horse says, "Fuck this. I'm cutting through Central Park to get some oats." So the horse starts picking up speed and blowing lights through Midtown, right? Because the horse is like, "Fuck this." The horse starts taking off. And now the hookers are screaming in the back of the fucking hansom cab. El Diablo can't stop it, right? So the horse makes a beeline into Central Park. And then like two other hansom cab operators go like, "Hey, wait a minute. There goes Billy's horse and carriage. And there's some moron driving it with two hookers." So they go into the park after him. And it was like the trotters at Yonkers Raceway, or like Ben-Hur, like a chariot race. One got on the side of him and the other one got in the front of him. And the guy could have gotten fucking killed. They slowed him down in the center of the park and stopped the runaway horse and carriage. So this is like in the early 90s when things were different. So the hookers wanted no part of it. They fucking took off. They just bailed out of the horse and carriage. They weren't going to complain. So the handsome cab operator came over. He was pissed. So El Diablo went to an ATM and withdrew $500 and gave it to him on the spot. And that was the end of it. It went away. So that's a story from my book, Grand Theft Auto. No, not Grand Theft Auto, the NYPD's Flying Circus.
Good God. Yeah, but with that many people, you're going to have a bunch of characters like that.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt. No doubt.
Oh,
Man,
my old partner, we used to call Cancer. He killed more people than Cancer. He was in a couple of gun battles. He almost came out on top. He almost got thrown in the fucking oven. Do I want to hear that story?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. So my old partner, this is like late 80s, early 90s, you know, young guys going out to bars and shit. Before I worked with my old partner, Cancer, he used to work with this guy who was a amateur magician. So we'd be in the bars trying to pick up girls and shit, right? And the magician would come up to these girls as you're talking to him, and he's pulling the flowers out of his sleeve and pulling the coin. He's cock blocking us with magic, right? So I go, listen.
Has that ever worked anywhere?
It does. Surprisingly.
It did.
It does. Crazy.
He did well with the ladies as fuck, but he was lazy. So anyway, I told him, I says, get this motherfucker out of here because we're going to kick his ass in. So he goes, I wish he took his police career as seriously. So a couple of weeks later, my old partner and the magician get called into a basement apartment. It calls for help. So this is before where 911 could pinpoint it to the exact apartment. So they go into this basement and there's two doors. So they go to door number one. They're pounding on the door. It's at midnight. They got their radios blasting, no answer. My partner goes to bang on door number two, and the magician goes, come on, you made so much noise. Let's get the fuck out of here. And he goes, no, I just want to see. He goes, come on, I'll buy you a cup of coffee, which to cops, that's like crack to a fucking junkie, right? So he goes, all right, fuck it. He talks him out of banging on door number two, and they leave. So what they didn't know was behind door number two, the super was selling coke out of the apartment. And he was buying coke on consignment and selling it out the front door. But he became addicted to it, and he fell behind on his payments. And as you know, drug dealers don't send friendly notices or cancel your cable. So they did an old gypsy trick. It was these two Yugoslavian guys. What they did was they got an attractive female. They put her in front of the door and knocked on the door. So the crackhead super thinks he's going to get a blowjob. He pops open the door. The Albanians run in. They pistol whip him, shut the door. Where's the money? Where's the drugs? He don't have the answers. They shoot him in the head. They roll him up in a carpet, right? They drag him into the basement and they throw him in the fucking furnace. So while he's going up like a Puerto Rican fire log, these guys go back into the apartment and they're ransacking it. So while my old partner and the magician are about to knock on door number two, they come up with a plan and they go, listen, if these two fucking cops knock on the door, this is what we want you to do. They're telling the girl, start talking in Yugoslavian and point to the kitchen. And it was like a railroad apartment where the apartments go off to the side, you know? So once you get past this threshold, jump on the floor. We'll come out. We'll shoot the two cops in the head. We'll throw them in the incinerator. We'll go for the trifecta and we'll get the fuck out of here, right? So, but they don't knock on the door. So while they're about to leave, the getaway car is parked on a fucking fire hydrant. So my old partner bangs the car with a parking ticket. So 2 weeks later, the super's family is like, where the fuck is this guy? They call the police. The detectives come. Detectives find out that there was a calls for help last week or 2 weeks ago at that apartment. So they bring in my old partner and the magician. Like, do you remember anything? And he goes, I wrote a parking ticket. The parking ticket comes back to the female. The female gives up the two guys trying to distance herself, but she's in it too. And basically they had to go back to that building in February and shut the heat off. Oh, and let the furnace cool down to get the guy's skull and teeth and bones out of there. So that's a story from my book. I think, oh yeah, NYPD Through the Looking Glass. That's called Last Night a Magician Saved My Life.
Hey, I've got to ask you, are these audiobooks? Because I want to hear you read these sons of bitches.
You know, a lot of people have said that to me. I don't know if I could pull that off.
I promise you could. I promise.
He pulled one off. You can pull it off.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could sit in a room and do this. Like just read.
You're a natural. Yeah, I assure you. You are. It might be for Comedy Central or a pay channel, but you're not gonna make broadcast TV. I'll tell you that. But you are top notch, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, the beat man would just his finger would get worn out on broadcast TV.
Yeah. No, I would listen. You said I could curse, so I'm kind of.
No, hey, no. Hey, on here it's perfect. There's no beep in here. I mean,
no, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pull that stuff.
I don't know. It makes the story. It makes the story. That listening, you be who you are. That's what makes it classic.
That's why we do this show, so that we can show cops as they are, not as who think they're supposed to be. We let them be themselves, you know.
Well, Vic, man, we are out of time, and you are absolutely a favorite here on Cocktails and
Thank you,
Cocktails.
guys.
I
Absolutely.
promise, and I mean that. You are outstanding. You're welcome back anytime, man.
Absolutely.
Anytime you want me, I'll come on. I don't mind. I got tons of stories.
We're gonna let you do commentary on stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Vic. Nice to have you on. We'll see you again for sure.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.